I almost dropped my coffee when I first heard what she did. A 15-year-old kid. Just a teen. Trying to make a few bucks mowing lawns for neighbors, and suddenly he's treated like a criminal. Over grass. Are you kidding me? The story hit me right in the chest because it didn't happen in some far-off neighborhood. It happened right here. In the same little subdivision where everyone pretends to be friendly until Karen steps out her door. And oh, you'd better believe this was the kind of Karen who lives for the Homeowners Association handbook. She carries that thing around like a Bible. Tabs and all, and the smug look on her face when she wags her finger at people. God, I can still see it. So here's how it all started. Michael, a teenager from 2 streets down, had this old push mower. It squeaked when it moved, rattled so loud you could hear it half a block away. But he didn't care. He was hustling, trying to save up for his first car. His dad lost his job last year. His mom was juggling 2 shifts and this kid was out here, sweating under the sun, earning a couple dollars at a time. Honestly, it was wholesome. Neighbors even cheered him on. Except, of course, for Karen. Karen, God help us. She stormed out one afternoon, hands on her hips, sunglasses perched on her nose like a cop about to write a ticket. What do you think you're doing? She snapped at him, her voice carrying across the cul-de-sac. The mower sputtered. Michael froze, and I swear the entire street turned to look. I'm just mowing Mr. Jenkins' lawn. The kid stammered, already looking guilty when he'd done nothing wrong. Karen sneered. Not in this neighborhood, you're not. You're violating Homeowners Association Policy 14C. Subsection 2. No unlicensed landscaping services allowed. What? Unlicensed landscaping? For a kid mowing grass. People actually chuckled from their porches. But Karen wasn't joking. She pulled out her phone, muttered something about filing a report, and marched back inside. Nobody thought she'd actually do it. Nobody thought she'd take it that far. But oh, she did. The next week, Michael's parents got this official-looking letter from the Homeowners Association board. It claimed their son was running an illegal business, that he was damaging the aesthetic uniformity of the lawns, and that if he continued, they'd face fines. Fines. For their teenage son cutting grass. His mom cried. His dad cursed, and Michael, poor kid, he just sat there looking crushed. That should have been the end of it. But Karen wasn't done. Oh no. She went full nuclear. She actually called the county code office and reported Michael for operating a business without a license. The kicker. She told people he was endangering property values with his mower. The same rusty mower he was pushing with all his skinny teenage strength. And then, brace yourself, Karen called the police. Yes. She reported a 15-year-old to the police for cutting grass. One afternoon, a squad car rolled up while Michael was out mowing, and an officer actually stepped out, confused as hell, asking the kid for his business license. You could have heard the collective gasp from the neighbors. Some started shouting at the officer. Others pointed at Karen's window because of course she was watching from behind the blinds. Grinning like she'd won. Michael's dad rushed out. Furious. He's a child. Are you serious? The cop looked embarrassed. Honestly, he looked like he wanted to quit on the spot. He gave the kid a warning, mumbled something about complaints filed, and drove off. The whole neighborhood boiled with anger. And Karen, she strutted out later that night, watering her lawn like nothing had happened, humming some tune. That's when things shifted. See, Karen didn't know that Michael's uncle, Tony, was a lawyer, a sharp one. And Tony wasn't just any lawyer. He had a reputation for tearing apart petty homeowners association nonsense in court. When he heard what happened, he didn't just shake his head. He smirked. He said 5 words that made everyone lean in. Let's take her to court. I swear I still remember that week. The buzz, the whispers, the little sparks of hope. People were tired of Karen. They were tired of her weaponizing the homeowners association. Tired of her nitpicking. tired of her pretending she was queen of the block. This was the crack everyone had been waiting for. The case moved fast. Karen strutted into small claims court with a folder so thick it looked like a novel. She wore the smug grin, probably thinking she was about to crush a teenager. She even brought color-coded charts of violations. Photographs of lawns before and after Michael mowed them, and get this, an audio recording of his squeaky mower, which she claimed was disturbing the peace. Can you believe that? Michael sat there, trembling, his parents holding his shoulders. Tony, though. Tony looked calm, like a lion before the pounce. The judge, an older woman with no patience for nonsense, flipped through Karen's mountain of paperwork, sighing audibly. At one point she actually asked, "Are you seriously telling me this is about a boy cutting grass?" The whole courtroom chuckled. Karen's smile faltered for the first time. And then came the twist. Tony stood, cleared his throat, and presented his evidence. He pulled out Homeowners Association bylaws. Yes, the same book Karen waved around, and highlighted the section that explicitly allowed residents to hire anyone for lawn care, licensed or not, as long as they had the homeowner's consent. Boom. Karen's entire case shattered. But Tony wasn't done. He leaned in, almost savoring it, and dropped the hammer. Karen herself had violated the Homeowners Association handbook multiple times. Photos surfaced of her trash bins left out for days, her Christmas lights still hanging in March, and, oh, sweet justice, her husband's side business being run from their garage without Homeowners Association approval. The courtroom exploded with laughter. Karen's face turned beet red. She stammered. She shouted. She tried to interrupt, but the judge cut her off. "Ma'am, sit down. I'm not done." And that's when the judge laid it out, word by word, like a gavel striking. "This is harassment. You wasted this court's time with personal grievances. You misrepresented the bylaws. You called law enforcement on a child. Frankly, it's disgraceful." You could hear a pin drop. Then the judge slammed the gavel. Karen lost. Badly. Not only was Michael cleared of everything, but Karen was fined for filing false complaints and ordered to pay the family's legal fees. That smug smile of hers, gone. Her sunglasses. She didn't even bother putting them on as she slunk out of the courtroom. The neighborhood celebrated that night like it was the 4th of July. People brought out grills. Kids played tag, and Michael was the hero of the block. He even got a brand new mower gifted by a group of neighbors who pitched in together. When he fired it up, that crisp hum filled the street and everyone cheered. But Karen, she didn't show her face for weeks. Word spread fast that she'd been reprimanded by the Homeowners Association board too. They stripped her of her position as compliance chair, whatever self-given title she had. She went from barking orders to barely whispering hello when she passed. Here's the bitter cherry on top, though. Months later, rumors leaked that Karen and her husband had to sell their house. Why? Because those legal fees and fines weren't small, and her little crusade had drained their savings. Nobody cried when the for sale sign went up. Nobody waved goodbye. All that, over grass. And yet, isn't that how these stories always go? The louder they scream about rules, the faster they trip on them. Karen wanted to humiliate a teenager, but she ended up humiliating herself in front of the entire community and the court system too. Sometimes karma doesn't just knock. Sometimes it slams the door right in your face. Was it worth destroying your reputation, your finances, and your pride? All because a kid cut some grass. Thanks for sticking with me through this wild ride. If you enjoyed this story of Homeowners Association madness, drama, and ultimate karma, don't forget to hit that subscribe button on my YouTube channel for more jaw-dropping tales. The gun was shaking in her hands. My little boy's wide eyes locked on the barrel, his small fists clutching his toy truck as if it were a shield. And this wasn't even a cop. It was the HOA president, Karen, dressed up in some fake uniform she bought online. My God, who does that? who points a weapon at a child. Drop it. I screamed, my voice cracking as I stepped in front of my son. My chest was heaving, adrenaline burning my throat. The cul-de-sac was quiet, eerie, just the hum of cicadas in the summer heat. Then her shrill voice cut through the air like a siren. He was trespassing, Karen yelled, finger twitching near the trigger. I told you these HOA rules are law. And if you won't discipline him, I will. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This wasn't some noise complaint or grass-length argument. She was weaponizing her obsession. I swear, in that moment, I felt time slow, every bead of sweat on my temple, every shallow breath from my boy, every heartbeat pounding against my ribs. And then, another voice, a low, commanding baritone that froze her in place. Ma'am, put that gun down. Out of nowhere, a tall man in jeans and a ball cap stepped into view, calm but radiating authority. He had that look, you know the one, broad stance, sharp eyes, like he'd stared down danger more times than he could count. He pulled a badge from his back pocket and held it up. You. Federal Marshal. Karen's face went white, her knees literally buckling. The pistol clattered to the concrete, the sharp metallic echo bouncing against the neat suburban houses. My son whimpered, burying his face into my side, and I held him tight, whispering, "It's okay, buddy, it's okay now." But the truth, it wasn't okay. Not yet. The marshal, his name turned out to be Jack, kept his gaze fixed on her. You threatened a minor with a firearm. Do you understand the gravity of what you just did? His words hit like thunder, each one making Karen shrink further. I didn't mean. He was on the HOA property. She stammered, voice cracking. Lady, this isn't a neighborhood committee squabble. This is federal-level assault with a deadly weapon. On a child. His hand was steady, but his eyes, they burned. Neighbors had started peeking out from behind curtains. Phones raised, recording. The entire street was holding its breath. And me, my hands were trembling, not just from fear but from a fury I'd never known. How dare she, pretending to be law enforcement, pointing a gun at my kid, all because she thought the HOA gave her the right. I wanted to scream at her, to demand why, to shake her until she admitted how insane this was. But Jack's presence anchored me. He was the wall between chaos and control. And then came the twist. Karen's husband, a meek man who usually just nodded along with her tirades, stepped out of their house. But instead of defending her, he walked straight to Jack. "Sir," he said, voice low, trembling, "I've been keeping records, videos. She's been escalating for months. I didn't know it would get this far." He handed over a flash drive. Please take this. I can't protect her anymore." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Karen's head whipped toward him, eyes wide with betrayal. "You, traitor. After everything I've done to keep this neighborhood in line." He didn't even flinch. "You nearly killed a child. Karen, you've lost yourself." For a moment, the only sound was the distant bark of a dog. Then the marshal nodded, pocketed the flash drive and called it in. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, growing louder by the second. Karen collapsed to the pavement, sobbing, mascara streaking down her face. The once untouchable queen of HOA tyranny, reduced to a broken mess in front of everyone she used to intimidate. And the neighbors, they weren't silent anymore. One woman shouted, "You terrorized us for years, Karen. This is what you get." Another man added, "You called my son a criminal for riding his skateboard. Now look at you." Phones stayed raised, capturing every moment, the air alive with both anger and relief. I exhaled shakily, hugging my boy tighter. He looked up at me, His small voice muffled against my shirt. "Daddy, is she going to jail?" I crouched to meet his eyes, forcing a steady tone. "Yes, buddy. She is, and she won't ever scare you again." The squad cars pulled in, lights flashing red and blue across the neat white fences and manicured lawns. Officers cuffed Karen, reading her rights as she screamed about rescue missions and protecting the HOA's sovereignty. It was pathetic. Jack turned to me. "You'll want to file charges. And don't worry, you've got plenty of witnesses. This won't just disappear." I nodded, still dazed, still holding my son as though letting go might break him. "Thank you," I whispered, the weight of what could have happened crashing into me all at once. But the most haunting part, as they hauled her away, Karen's sobs shifted into bitter mutters. "You'll all regret this. The HOA was my army. You'll see." It sent a chill down my spine. Because sometimes villains don't go quietly. Sometimes they cling to the very end. And yet, in that same moment, I realized something powerful. She wasn't in control anymore. Her reign had ended. Not with another petty fine or power trip, but with handcuffs and humiliation. That night, the neighborhood buzzed with whispers, laughter, even cautious relief. Parents let their kids play outside a little longer. Porch lights glowed warmer. Felt like a shadow had lifted. Still, when I tucked my boy into bed, I couldn't shake the echo of the gun's click. The tremble in his voice. "Daddy, why do people like her exist?" he asked softly. I swallowed hard, brushing his hair back. Because sometimes people confuse power with respect. But the truth, real respect comes from kindness, not fear. He nodded sleepily, as if he understood more than I gave him credit for. And maybe, just maybe, that night changed him too. But I'll never forget the sight of Karen collapsing in front of a crowd that had once tiptoed around her. It was more than justice. It was karma, raw and unflinching. And if you've ever wondered whether arrogance and cruelty eventually catch up with people, that day, in our quiet little cul-de-sac, the answer was clear. Because even the loudest, most dangerous HOA cop can't outrun the law when a real badge steps in. Thank you for listening this story. If you felt the outrage and the relief like I did, please subscribe to my YouTube channel for more HOA drama, karma twists, and true tales of justice that sometimes even end with a lawsuit. I still remember the sound her heels made when she marched across my gravel driveway, the sharp click-clack like a warning bell. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just some HOA misunderstanding. This was war. It was early spring when she showed up sunny enough to feel like a fresh start. I had just moved into my late uncle's old farmhouse. Peaceful place. Lots of birdsong. Oak trees whispering in the breeze. And for a few brief days, I thought I'd finally escaped the noise of city life. Until she arrived. "Excuse me," she barked, sunglasses on like some sort of suburban secret agent, a clipboard clutched tight in her manicured claws. "You're trespassing." I was standing on the porch, a coffee in one hand, a hammer in the other. "Beg your pardon? You're on HOA land. This home was foreclosed years ago. You can't just squat here." I laughed. That was my first mistake. "Ma'am, I live here. I inherited this house from my uncle." "That's impossible," she said with a smirk that made my blood pressure spike. "This is part of Whispering Cedars HOA. The bylaws clearly state that foreclosed lots revert to the association after 5 years of abandonment. This lot is community property now." She handed me a paper, printed version of the bylaws, highlighted in yellow, bold font, underlined. That was her first mistake. I didn't argue. Not yet. You don't waste breath on people like Karen. You let them run their mouth. You let them dig their own grave with every smug word. But inside, my stomach dropped. Something about how certain she weighs it shook me. I spent the rest of the day calling the county office, pulling old files, digging through the attic where my uncle had hoarded decades worth of legal docs and maps. The next morning, I had a date-stamped deed in my hand that proved I owned the property outright, free and clear.
No liens.
No ties to any HOA. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. 2 days later, I got a letter. Certified mail. The kind that smells like bad intentions. Inside was a notice of violation from the HOA signed by President Karen Morgan herself stating I had 5 business days to vacate the premises or face legal action. They claimed I was occupying community-owned land without permit, refusing compliance with residential code. And this was the kicker, presenting aggressive behavior toward HOA board members. All because I didn't roll over when Karen came barking on my porch. I tried to meet with the board. I even offered to bring the deed. Show them the papers. Karen refused. Chain of title doesn't override community bylaws, she said like she was quoting scripture. The association decides who lives here, not outdated paperwork. I almost choked. She was acting like HOA regulations were more powerful than property law. Like she was queen of the cul-de-sac. It wasn't just annoying, Anna Marie, it was dangerous. That week I got 3 more letters. One for unauthorized outdoor structures, my toolshed. Another for nuisance noise, a generator I ran during a storm. And one that just read, failure to submit residency application denied. I hadn't submitted one. I wasn't going to. I didn't have to. But Karen was relentless. She weaponized the HOA like it was her personal army. A week later, I came home from the grocery store and found 2 HOA board members in my backyard, measuring my fence with a tape measure. Can I help you? They jumped. One of them, a guy named Tim, looked genuinely guilty. Karen said we had to verify boundary lines. You step on my land again, I said calmly. I'll have the sheriff escort you out. The next morning, there was an envelope taped to my front door. A summons. Karen was suing me for illegal occupancy. It didn't matter that I had a valid land deed. It didn't matter that my name was listed with the county tax office. She was betting I didn't have the stomach or the money to fight back. Bad bet. I showed up in court with a briefcase full of documents and an attorney I found through a local vet who hated his own HOA. The guy was ex-military, sharp as hell, and smelled blood the moment he saw the paperwork. This is gonna be fun, he whispered as Karen strutted into the courtroom in a red pantsuit, like she was about to win an Oscar for Best Villain in a local drama. Karen spoke first. Her lawyer, some sunburnt guy who clearly only knew HOA law, claimed I was living without approval from the governing residential body, that my property was annexed into the HOA through a vote 10 years ago, and that non-compliant residents must be removed to preserve community standards. Then my lawyer stood. He didn't shout. He didn't posture. He just pulled out the original land deed, county zoning maps, and the HOA incorporation documents. And then he asked a simple question. Can the HOA prove legal jurisdiction over this parcel? Dead silence. The judge leaned forward. Well, Karen's lawyer blinked. You voted to include it. That's not how annexation works, the judge replied sharply. You can't vote yourself ownership of private property that isn't yours. Karen stood up. But we've been maintaining the land. You trespassed, my lawyer snapped. And you threatened a legal property owner with forced removal. That's harassment. The judge turned to me. Mr. Walker, you have the original deed? Yes, Your Honor. Filed with the county? Yes, sir. Here's the copy. He held it up, flipped through it, nodded slowly. I see no evidence this land was ever legally absorbed by the HOA. In fact, he glanced at Karen. It appears your association acted well outside its authority. Karen's mouth fell open. I'd pay money to see that look again. Then it got worse for her, because my lawyer had filed a counterclaim. Turns out, falsely claiming land ownership and harassing a legal resident while using funds from HOA dues to pay for litigation, that's fraud. And when the judge ordered a financial audit of the HOA's budget, everything started unraveling. The HOA had paid over $19,000 in legal fees trying to sue me without informing the dues-paying members. They even used reserve funds meant for emergency road repair. When word got out, all hell broke loose. Dozens of residents showed up at the next HOA meeting, demanding answers. Karen tried to play victim, said she was defending the community from unlawful occupation. But one older woman, Mrs. Pennington, stood up with a walker in one hand and fury in her eyes. "You used our money to bully a man off his own land? You don't speak for me." That was the turning point. More homeowners started asking for Karen's resignation. When she refused, Samanino ones sure who started a recall petition. It spread like wildfire. But I wasn't done. At the next court date, my lawyer motioned to have the HOA's Articles of Incorporation reviewed, citing gross misuse of authority, breach of fiduciary duty, and systemic procedural fraud. The court froze the HOA's accounts pending investigation. Karen turned white. Her face looked like it was melting under the courtroom lights. Turns out the association hadn't filed a required renewal form with the state 2 years ago. Technically, the HOA wasn't legally active anymore. All those rules Karen had weaponized didn't legally exist. And on record, she had signed dozens of notices as president of an HOA that had no legal standing. The judge dissolved it on the spot. Just like that, the HOA ceased to exist. No more fines. No more letters. No more Karen. I walked out of that courthouse with my land, my freedom, and a line of neighbors shaking my hand on the way to their cars. But that wasn't the best part. The best part came 3 weeks later. I was trimming the hedges when a guy in a suit pulled into my driveway. Said he was from a local real estate group. They were buying land in the area. Heard about the HOA dissolution. Wanted to know if I'd be willing to sell or at least license some of the land for community development. I smiled. "Depends," I said, sipping my coffee. "How badly do you want Karen's old HOA office?" The guy laughed. "You're the one who crushed her?" "Let's just say," I replied, "I gave her bylaws a burial, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could finally breathe." 3 weeks after the HOA's collapse, my neighborhood looked like it had woken up from a bad dream. The laminated notices were gone from doors. The violation warning signs were tossed in trash bins. And the little tyrant queen who once roamed these streets in heels and sunglasses vanished. Karen Morgan had skipped town. But the wreckage she left behind? That was another story. Because with the HOA gone, people were free but also confused. Some were angry they'd been duped into years of fines, citations, and dues. Others were panicking over the sudden lack of structure. One guy, Carl, who used to power wash his driveway every Sunday at 7 a.m. to avoid Karen citations, stood in the middle of the road looking like he'd forgotten how to live without permission. And me? I just wanted to be left alone. But karma had more plans. It started when I got a letter from a woman named Elise Voss. She was Karen's former secretary. Quiet, wore neutral colors, never spoke unless spoken to. The kind of person you don't notice until she's holding receipts. Her letter began with, "I never wanted any of this, but I think you should see what she did." Attached were 17 pages of emails, internal memos, and scanned receipts detailing Karen's personal use of HOA funds for dry cleaning, spa treatments, even first-class airfare to a leadership summit in Florida that, according to Elise, never happened. And then there was the bombshell. An email thread titled, "We can force him out. His deed won't matter." I read it 3 times. In that email, Karen was coaching the board members, her loyal inner circle, in how to flood me with fines, push fake complaints from neighbors, and create a paper trail of disruption that would convince the county to intervene. It was an orchestrated harassment campaign. Elise ended the letter with this line, "I quit the day she threatened to sue your dog as a non-compliant emotional support animal. That's when I knew she was insane." Yeah, that tracks. I wanted to burn the letter, forget about it, move on. But something inside me cracked wide open. This woman hadn't just come after me. She'd built a system to bully, extort, and humiliate people for years. I made some calls, and that's when things escalated. Turns out, Karen didn't just lie about my property. She lied about dozens of properties. Several homes she claimed were within the HOA's jurisdiction. They weren't. The paperwork had never been updated. She used vague language and false maps to rope them in. A guy named Frank, a retired firefighter, who lived 4 blocks over, said Karen forced him to tear down his handmade front deck because it violated aesthetic code. That deck was a memorial to his late wife. Another woman, Jasmine, a single mother, said Karen fined her $250 for hanging laundry outside. When she couldn't pay, Karen doubled it. Then added late penalties. Jasmine paid over $1,200 that year for laundry. The deeper I dug, the more it became clear. Karen had created a fiefdom out of fear and fraud. So I did what any self-respecting, land deed waiving, wrongfully accused property owner would do. I filed a civil suit. The claim: intentional infliction of emotional distress, abuse of authority, and civil conspiracy. And I wasn't alone. 8 other neighbors joined the suit. By the end of the month, we had over 20. I'll never forget the day Karen got served. I didn't see it happen, but I heard about it from the mailman, who saw the process server walk up to the hair salon where she had started working in the next town over. Apparently, she tried to run out the back door. Didn't work. She was handed a thick manila envelope right there next to the shampoo station. Word spread fast. That town was even smaller than ours. By the weekend, she was off the salon's website, her chair cleared out. But that wasn't the end of it. Karen lawyered up. This time, with someone big, some guy from the city who clearly didn't understand just how dirty her hands were. He sent out a statement claiming we were engaging in a vindictive witch hunt, and that Ms. Morgan's actions were legally protected under HOA sovereign governance. My attorney just laughed. She thinks an HOA is a country, he said. This is gonna be fun. Then came discovery. Emails, financial records, texts. And somewhere in that mess we found the twist. One of Karen's closest board members, Lisa Holland, had been funneling a percentage of HOA violation fees directly to a personal PayPal account. For years. Turns out, Lisa was Karen's cousin. And they were running a quiet side hustle. Every time someone got a fine over $200, a cut went into Lisa's consulting fund. They cleaned up over $80,000 in 3 years. This wasn't just shady anymore. It was criminal. We handed everything over to the state attorney's office. And then came the news. A formal investigation was being opened into embezzlement, wire fraud, and abuse of position. Karen tried to flee the state. Didn't work. She was detained in a hotel in Nevada trying to check in under her maiden name. 2 months later, I was back in court, but this time, Karen was in handcuffs. Her face was pale, hair tied back in a tight, nervous bun. She didn't speak. Her lawyer did all the talking, but it didn't help. The evidence was airtight. Emails with timestamps, financial logs, witness statements from former board members who flipped the second they realized they were on the hook too. The judge didn't just rule in our favor. He dragged her from the bench. He called her a predator hiding behind policy, and said her actions showed a calculated disregard for human dignity and the law. We were awarded damages. And when the smoke cleared, Karen was sentenced to 28 months in state prison for financial fraud and conspiracy. I didn't show up to watch the sentencing. I was busy building a new porch. But a neighbor texted me a photo of Karen being led away, still arguing with the bailiff like the rules didn't apply to her. They always do. Now here's the thing, people ask if I'm happy about what happened. No, not happy, but satisfied? Yeah. Because justice doesn't always come with a parade. Sometimes it comes with a quiet sunrise, a cup of coffee, and the knowledge that the monster is finally gone. For a while after Karen's sentencing, the neighborhood felt eerily quiet. Not peaceful quiet, like everyone was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Like maybe, even after she was locked up, her shadow still lingered on the sidewalks. You could almost hear it in the way people talked, cautious, clipped like trauma doesn't go away just because the tyrant does. People were free, sure, but some of them didn't know how to be. We'd all lived under her boot for so long that basic things, hanging wind chimes, planting flowers without approval, putting up a shed suddenly felt like acts of rebellion. The man across the street, Jim, put flamingos on his lawn just because he could. Someone else painted their mailbox neon green. Jasmine planted wildflowers across her whole yard. Flowers Karen had once fined her for calling them messy. And as for me, I finally finished restoring the barn my uncle left behind. Painted it red with my own 2 hands. Every brushstroke felt like a victory. I even hung a giant wood sign over the entrance that said, in bold, uneven letters, private property, deed owned, no Karens allowed. Bit petty? Maybe. But God, it felt good. Still, the deeper relief didn't come from the paint or the porch or the sign. It came from the people. The strange, sweet truth was, Karen had accidentally united the neighborhood. She'd ruled through fear, but her downfall had forced people to talk, share, organize, and heal. At the next town hall meeting hosted in the local library, not some overpriced clubhouse, more than 30 residents showed up. No agenda, no bylaws, just folding chairs and a whiteboard. People actually smiled at each other. Someone brought cookies. Frank, the retired firefighter, stood up and said, you know, maybe we don't need an HOA, maybe we just need to act like neighbors again. He got a standing ovation. We started organizing differently after that. We created a casual committee, not an HOA, never again. Just a group of volunteers to help manage trash collection schedules, coordinate block parties, and keep the old community garden going. No fines, no punishments, just people helping people. But not everyone was ready to let go of the past. One night, I got a knock at the door. It was Lisa Holland's daughter, Clara. She was maybe 19, nervous, clutching a leather folder like it was glued to her hands. Hi, she said. You don't know me, but I think you should see this. She handed me the folder and backed away, almost like she was afraid it might explode. Inside were more documents, bank records, transfers, scans of old checks with Karen's name and Lisa's son, the signature line. Clara said she'd found them cleaning out her mom's old computer. I think my mom's gonna get indicted, she whispered. And I don't know what to do. I brought her inside, made tea, and told her the truth. Your mom made choices, I said. And yeah, she'll probably face the music. But you didn't. And you did the right thing coming here. She cried. I didn't stop her. Somehow, I ended up being the one neighbors came to with things they were scared of. I hadn't asked to be anyone's hero. I just wanted peace. But I understood why they came. Because I'd fought back. When Karen kicked the door in, I didn't run, I reinforced it. So when the county called and asked if I'd consider sitting on the advisory council for HOA oversight reform, I didn't laugh. I said yes. They flew me to a conference in Austin where I gave a talk called, When a Neighborhood Becomes a Kingdom, How We Took Back Our Block. It got a standing ovation. A senator shook my hand. Somebody from a homeowners' rights group gave me a t-shirt that said, My HOA tried to kill me and all I got was this lousy lawsuit. And just when I thought the saga was over, really over, another twist came knocking. Literally. I opened the door and there stood a man in a gray suit. Late 50s. Professional. Holding a briefcase and a clipboard. He introduced himself as Paul Ridgway, a private land developer from Houston. Mr. Walker, he said, I've been watching the headlines. What you did here, it's remarkable. I raised an eyebrow. You didn't come here just to compliment me, did you? He smiled. No, I came to offer you a deal. That's when he told me. He wanted to purchase the old HOA's former easement properties, the little green strips of land, the neglected retention pond, and the empty parcel Karen had once tried to turn into a tennis court. Apparently, the county had repossessed them after the HOA was dissolved, and Ridgway's company was in the business of converting defunct HOA lots into community co-ops and microparks. It was sustainable, smart, And most importantly legal. You'd keep your land, he said. But if you're willing to help us coordinate with the neighbors, you could turn this whole area into a model for post-HOA living. You'd be the face of it. My jaw dropped. Me? The face of what, exactly? Community leadership, Ridgway said. HOA-free. Resident-run. You already did the hard part. We just want to help rebuild with you. I told him I'd think about it. And I did. For 2 whole weeks I walked the land, talked to the neighbors, breathed in the cool spring air and thought about what it meant to truly own something not just in name, but in soul. This place had gone through hell. It had been ruled by fear. But now, it had a shot at being something better. I called Ridgway back and said, I'm in, but no speeches, no titles. I'm not a politician. He laughed. Don't worry, Mr. Walker. You're something better. By summer, the lots were cleared. Benches were installed. Fruit trees planted. Kids played in a splash pad where Karen's old HOA office once stood. And right there, in the middle of the new community garden, we put up a handmade sign. No bylaws, just neighbors. There's a quiet that settles over a place after the storm finally passes. It's not the same as peace. Peace is something you earn. Quiet is just what's left when the shouting stops. By the end of that summer, our neighborhood had become something I never expected alive. The artificial order Karen once demanded had given way to something messy and human and real. Lawns didn't all match anymore. Fences leaned. Colors clashed. But it was beautiful. And people talked now. I'd sit on my porch with a lemonade and watch kids bike past yelling to their friends. Neighbors waved. Some even stopped just to ask how my tomato plants were doing. One guy, Martin, he used to keep his blinds closed all day, started organizing movie nights on a big white sheet taped to his garage door. What we'd rebuilt wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Still, Karen's shadow wasn't completely gone. Her sentencing had made the news, and not just locally. A few HOA accountability forums picked it up. Then it hit Reddit. Next thing I knew, people were emailing me from all over the country. Colorado, Florida, even Hawaii. Stories from folks who'd been bullied by their own HOA presidents, fined for everything from solar panels to wind chimes. One woman in Arizona said she was threatened with a lien because her wheelchair ramp violated elevation guidelines. That one broke me. This wasn't just about one Karen. This was about a system. A system that lets a few petty tyrants control entire neighborhoods through intimidation, manipulation, and often, straight-up lies. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I started recording. It began with a video. Just me in front of my red barn, telling the story of how Karen tried to erase my ownership and how I fought back. I posted it to YouTube. No editing. No flashy titles. Just the truth. Within a week, it had 27,000 views. By month's end, over 300,000. I called the channel Deeded because at the end of the day, your name on the land matters. Not a committee. Not some clipboard-wielding busybody with a fake badge. You. People flooded the comments with their own HOA horror stories. They tried to fine me $500 for parking my camper in my own driveway. Karen sprayed bleach on my flower bed because the plants weren't native species. I was fined for putting up a sign that said, "Be kind." They said it was political. I couldn't stop reading. And I couldn't stay silent. I started making more videos breaking down homeowner rights, how to read your land deed, how to request HOA audits, how to challenge illegal citations. I wasn't a lawyer. I always said that. But I was living proof that you could stand up and win. One afternoon, I got an email from Elise Voss, again Karen's former secretary. She'd seen the videos. "I watched you say things I always wanted to scream," she wrote. "I didn't have the courage. But I do now. Thank you." Attached to her message was a PDF, her full deposition. A detailed account of every forged signature, every backdoor deal, every lie Karen had told to keep power. She said it was okay to share it. I did. The video went viral. It hit 1.2 million views in a week. News outlets reached out. HOA watchdog groups wanted interviews. A lawyer from California offered to fund a legal resource site for victims of HOA abuse. I found myself on a Zoom call with a senator's aide discussing potential reforms for mandatory HOA transparency at the federal level. And through it all, I stayed grounded. Because I knew this only mattered if it helped real people. Back in our little neighborhood, life kept moving. The splash pad got finished. The benches were sanded and painted by the kids. Jasmine opened a lemonade stand with her daughter, and stoic old Frank became the unofficial grill master at every Friday potluck. Even Carl, the guy who once feared missing HOA garbage day by 30 minutes, relaxed enough to let his beard grow out. Looked like a mountain man now. I loved it. Then one day someone new moved in. Big white moving truck. A woman in a denim jacket and her teenage son. She walked right up to me, shook my hand, and said, "I heard this was the neighborhood where y'all kicked the HOA's ass." I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my coffee. "Yeah," I said, "that's us." Her name was Trina. She'd left her last neighborhood after years of battles with an HOA that tried to ban her from growing vegetables in her yard. Here, we gave her the biggest garden plot available. And she made magic with it. I'd walk past in the mornings and see her hands in the dirt, her son chasing butterflies. And I'd think, this is it. This is what we fought for. Not just the right to own land, but the right to live on a truly live without fear. But there's one last thing I need to tell you. A few months after Karen was sent away, I got a letter. No return address. Just a name scrawled on the flap. M. Holloway. Inside was a short note. "You don't know me, but I know you." Karen tried to pull the same stunt in our subdivision 3 years ago. She got voted off the board before she could sink her claws in too deep. I always wondered what would have happened if she'd stayed. Now I know. Thank you for standing up. You didn't just fight for your land. You fought for all of us. And taped to the bottom of the letter? A photo of Karen mugshot style gritting her teeth in that red pantsuit she loved so much. I pinned it to the back of my barn door. Right under it I wrote, "We don't lose ground here." Was Karen just a villain? Or was she a symptom of something deeper? Do we give people too much power without enough checks? Where do we draw the line between community standards and personal freedom? What's the difference between order and control? I'd love to hear what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What's your take on HOAs, justice, and personal rights? Thanks for sticking with me through this wild ride. If this story made you think, feel, or rage just a little, consider hitting that subscribe button to join our growing crew of everyday justice warriors, and feel free to share your ideas for the next battle we take on. Let's keep fighting the good fight one deed at a time. She broke into my garage for an ice cream machine. Yeah, you heard that right. The HOA president, in broad daylight, broke into my locked suburban garage, unplugged my ice cream machine, and tried to wheel it out like it was her birthright. What she didn't know, I had hidden cameras everywhere, and within 24 hours, she'd be in cuffs. Let me back up a sec. It started like any other suffocatingly hot Tuesday in July. You know, the kind sun's melting your brain through the windshield, and the cicadas are screaming like they're getting paid by the hour. I'd just gotten home from work, unbuttoned my collar, ready to treat myself to a vanilla cone for my pride and joy. The Taylor C713 soft serve machine I scored from a closing Dairy Queen auction. Yeah, I know. Who the hell owns an industrial ice cream machine? Me. I do. And I have no shame about it. I'd converted a corner of my garage into a little slice of frosty heaven. Chrome counter, waffle cone rack, toppings bar, the whole 9 yards. I call it the cold zone, neighbors call it weird. Whatever. But that day, something felt off the second I hit the remote and my garage door creaked up. The machine wasn't humming. No soft glow from the digital screen. Just silence. I stepped inside, looked around, and my stomach dropped. There were footprints, dusty, sneaker-sized prints that didn't belong to me or anyone in my house. One of the security cameras by the ceiling was knocked sideways, dangling by its cable. The machine itself had been unplugged, and the power cord was neatly coiled like someone was planning to move it. I froze. Then I exhaled. Slow. Okay. All right, I whispered. Let's see who's dumb enough to mess with the cold zone. I bolted inside, pulled up the hidden security feed from the garage cam tucked behind an old toolbox. Grainy, but clear enough. The timestamp read 11:43 a.m., and there she was, Karen, our HOA president. Mid-50s, straw visor, crop tennis skirt, and that same god-awful peppermint essential oil perfume she wears like armor. She struts into my garage like she owns the place, holding a clipboard in one hand and bolt cutters in the other. What the hell? The footage showed her snipping the old padlock like it was a ribbon at a grand opening, stepping over the threshold with a self-righteous little huff. Then, she walks up to the machine, runs her hand along the chrome, and mutters audibly, "This will look perfect in the clubhouse." My jaw hit the floor. Perfect in the "Are you kidding me?" I rewound, played it again. Same quote, same smug smile, same theft-in-progress attitude like she was redecorating a Sims lot. You have got to understand. This wasn't about ice cream. This was about power, control. Karen had been gunning for me ever since the last HOA meeting, when I voted against her motion to ban inflatable lawn decorations. Apparently, a single light-up penguin on my lawn last Christmas was undermining the neighborhood's property value. Give me a break. But this? Breaking and entering? Trying to steal my machine? She messed with the wrong guy. So there I was watching Karen on hidden camera, inside my garage, touching my damn ice cream machine like she paid for it. And the audacity, she even tried to plug it back in at one point, I kid you not, like she was giving it a little test run before kidnap. I mean, was she planning to roll it down the driveway and just pretend it wandered into her garage by accident? Oh, this? It followed me home. Give me a break. Now here's where it gets wild. She pulls out her phone and starts taking pictures. Of what? The wiring, the ceiling, the corner with the cleaning supplies. Like she's documenting evidence of I don't even know. An author. Then get this, she walks back outside, flips through her clipboard like she's reading off some HOA inspection checklist she made up on the spot, and mutters, Code 17C. Appliance breach. I swear I nearly choked on my own breath laughing. Appliance. But I wasn't laughing. I checked the side door security cam. 20 minutes after she broke in, she came back with a dolly. A dolly. One of those big ones you use to move fridges or vending machines. She wheeled it right up to my tailor and tried to slide it underneath. Only thing that stopped her was the floor anchor bolts I installed. That's right, I anchored that baby to the concrete. Not because I expected an HOA heist. She tried yanking it, shoved it a few times, even cursed under her breath, "Stupid machine," before G. Now here's the twist, I could have called the cops right then. I mean, it was all there on video. Cut lock, trespassing, attempted theft, slam done. But something in me said wait. I texted my buddy Jordan's with the county sheriff's office and said, got a developing situation. Might nay. Jordan, Karen again? Me, level 10 Karen. Next morning, I get a letter in the mail, official HOA stationery, gold seal, printed in Comic Sans like a monster. The letter says I'm in violation of Community Aesthetic Ordinance 4.2b. Unapproved commercial equipment in private dwelling. Penalty? $500 fine and mandatory removal within 48 hours. Signed, Karen. I laughed so hard. My coffee came out my nose. She couldn't steal the machine, so now she was trying to fine it out of existence? Goo. So I went ahead and did what any red-blooded American would do, printed a copy of the footage, framed it, and dropped it off at the HOA office. No note, just a sticky on the glass. Thought this might help clarify the violation. 30 minutes later, my phone rings. It's Jordan again. Hey, we got a call from your HOA president. She came in reporting a stolen appliance. Claimed you stole it from the clubhouse last year. I paused. So she's filing a report on a machine that's anchored to my garage floor and has my name engraved in the side? Jordan chuckled. Yup, and she brought pictures. From your garage. Taken illegally. I said, perfect. Time to play my footage. Next thing I know, we're sitting in my driveway with two officers and a laptop, showing them Karen's greatest hits bolt cutters, the dolly, the muttered, "This'll look perfect" in the clubhouse line. They didn't say much at first, just kept exchanging glances like, "Is this lady serious?" And then I saw it across the street. Karen, watching from her porch, holding that same cursed clipboard frozen in place. One officer asked, "Do you want to press charges?" I looked over at her. Really looked. She wasn't smug anymore. Not twitchy. Not fake friendly. Just scared. Pale. Like she was watching her little HOA empire crumble in real time. I smiled. I think I'll let the footage speak for itself. Within 24 hours, Karen was booked for trespassing and attempted petty theft. The HOA board called an emergency meeting. Turns out, this wasn't her first equipment recovery. She'd lifted a pressure washer from someone's shed 2 streets over last summer and blamed it on community maintenance miscommunication. By the end of the week, she was removed as president, replaced by drumroll Mrs. Moreno, a retired schoolteacher who believes in potlucks, porch chats, and minding your own damn business. As for my ice cream machine, still humming, still anchored, and now it has a tiny engraved plaque on the side. Property of the cold zone. Karen-proof since 2025. Ever had an HOA drama escalate over something ridiculous? Tell me your wildest neighbor story in the comments, and hey, hit that subscribe button if you believe justice is best served cold.